Chapter 1. A Royal Birth and Turbulent Childhood. In the midst of a chilly September day in the year 1533, the grand city of Greenwich, England, was filled with a new sense of hope and celebration. Why? A baby girl was born. But this was not just any baby girl. This was Elizabeth, the daughter of King Henry VIII and his second wife, Anne Boleyn. Elizabeth's entrance into the world was a dramatic event. As the daughter of the king, her birth was met with both joy and controversy. This was because her father, King Henry VIII, had taken drastic measures to marry her mother, Anne. His actions, including divorcing his first wife and breaking away from the Catholic Church, had caused a great deal of conflict. Despite these issues, the young Elizabeth was welcomed with open arms by her parents. The early years of Elizabeth's life were spent in the lavish royal court of King Henry VIII. She lived in grand palaces, had the finest clothes, and was cared for by a group of devoted servants. Despite her high birth, Elizabeth's life was far from easy. The court of King Henry VIII was a place filled with power struggles and tension. The king was a demanding man, known for his quick temper and constant desire for control. This environment shaped Elizabeth from a young age. She quickly learned the importance of wit, intelligence, and diplomacy, qualities that would later become crucial in her own reign as queen. At the age of 2, Elizabeth's life was shaken by tragedy. Her mother, Anne Boleyn, fell out of favour with the king and was executed. This marked a turning point in Elizabeth's young life, as she was declared illegitimate and removed from the line of succession. Despite the turmoil surrounding her, Elizabeth remained strong. Even as a child, she displayed a resilience that hinted at the great queen she would become. Throughout the highs and lows of her early years, Elizabeth navigated the volatile court of her father, King Henry VIII, with a determination that would shape the rest of her life. The birth and early years of Elizabeth are more than just the beginning of her life's story. They provide insight into the world that shaped her and the events that prepared her for one of the most influential reigns in history. This period set the stage for the rise of a woman who would become known as Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen. As Elizabeth grew older, she quickly became aware of the complexity of life at court, particularly as it related to her father, King Henry VIII. The king was a man known for his capriciousness and strong desires. His thirst for power and need for a male heir led to a series of marriages that left the court in a constant state of change and unrest. After the execution of Elizabeth's mother, Anne Boleyn, King Henry married Jane Seymour, who quickly gave birth to a son, Prince Edward. Edward was the son that Henry had long desired, and his birth pushed Elizabeth further from her father's favour. Although the king ensured that Elizabeth received a good education, her status at court was uncertain. She was no longer the princess, but the Lady Elizabeth. This change in status was a stark reminder of her mother's downfall and her precarious position in the ever-changing court politics. Life at court was not easy for young Elizabeth. Her father's frequent changes of heart regarding his wives caused insecurity and fear. Elizabeth saw wives come and go, each leaving their mark on the court and the king. Perhaps the most significant was Catherine Parr, King Henry's last wife. Catherine took an interest in Elizabeth, ensuring she received a strong education, nurturing her natural intelligence. It was under Catherine's influence that Elizabeth studied Greek and Latin and became an avid reader, sowing the seeds of the enlightened ruler she would become. Despite the turbulence of her father's reign, Elizabeth managed to navigate the ups and downs of her early life with grace. From a young age, she learned how to adapt to changing circumstances, a skill that would serve her well in her future role as queen. The king's discontent, the changing faces of queens, the unstable nature of life at court, All of these played a part in shaping the woman Elizabeth would become. The experiences of her early life gave her a first-hand understanding of the capriciousness of power, teaching her important lessons that she would carry into her reign as queen. Elizabeth's young life was marked not only by the grandeur of court, but also by the struggle for acceptance. She was born a princess, but the execution of her mother, Anne Boleyn, tarnished her royal status. She was declared illegitimate, an outcast in her own father's court. From then on, Elizabeth had to fight for her place in the royal lineage. Despite this setback, Elizabeth did not let this define her. She was determined to prove her worth, not just as a royal, but as a person of intellect and character. She committed herself to her studies, immersing herself in languages, religion, and history. She exhibited a remarkable intelligence that impressed her tutors and even her aloof father. However, being a scholar was not enough to secure her place in the court. Elizabeth faced ongoing trials and tribulations, from the changing whims of her father to the ever-present threat of political enemies. She learned early on to be careful, to hold her cards close to her chest, and to rely on her wits rather than her royal status. These were lessons that would later prove crucial when she herself ascended the throne. Elizabeth also faced personal struggles during her formative years. Her relationship with her half-siblings, Mary and Edward, was complicated. While Edward was treated as the cherished male heir, Elizabeth and Mary were often sidelined. Despite the difficulties, Elizabeth maintained a strong relationship with her younger brother, while her connection with her elder sister, Mary, was more fraught, foreshadowing future conflicts. Elizabeth's fight for acceptance wasn't just about securing her place in the royal lineage, it was also about establishing her identity. She was not just a king's daughter or a future queen. She was Elizabeth, a young woman of courage, intelligence, and resilience. In the face of adversity, Elizabeth remained steadfast. Her early years were characterized by struggle, but they also laid the foundation for the strong, unyielding queen she would become. Through it all, Elizabeth demonstrated a resilience and an unwavering determination to claim her rightful place, not just in the royal lineage, but in the annals of history. Chapter 2. Ascension to the Throne. November 17, 1558, marked a turning point in English history. It was the day Queen Mary I, also known as Bloody Mary for her harsh rule, died. She had been queen for just 5 years. As the eldest surviving child of King Henry VIII, she had taken the throne upon the death of her younger half-brother, Edward VI. Mary's reign had been marked by religious conflict and political turmoil. Determined to reverse the Protestant Reformation begun by her father, she had restored Roman Catholicism in England. Her efforts were met with resistance, leading to the persecution and execution of hundreds of Protestants, giving rise to her grim nickname. Mary's death was not entirely unexpected. She had been ill for some time, and rumours had circulated about her poor health. However, the official news of her death brought a wave of both grief and relief across the nation. With Mary's death, the way was clear for a new ruler, her half-sister Elizabeth. Elizabeth was the daughter of King Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, who had been executed when Elizabeth was just a toddler. Despite the circumstances of her birth and early life, Elizabeth had managed to survive the treacherous politics of the Tudor court. Elizabeth had spent her sister's reign largely out of the public eye, continuing her education and keeping a safe distance from the religious conflict that defined Mary's reign. But now, with Mary's death, Elizabeth's quiet life was about to change dramatically. Despite their strained relationship, Mary's death greatly impacted Elizabeth. She lost a sister, but at the same time, the path opened for her to become the Queen of England. This brought with it a wealth of responsibility and a host of challenges. Elizabeth was about to step into the limelight and face the realities of being a queen in a divided nation. The death of Queen Mary I was the end of an era, but it also marked the beginning of Elizabeth's remarkable reign. With the death of Mary I, the throne of England stood vacant. But not for long. Elizabeth, the last surviving child of King Henry VIII, was the next in line. Her coronation, a grand affair, was set for January 15, 1559. On the day of her coronation, Elizabeth stepped out in a regal procession through the streets of London, where she was met with cheering crowds. People from all walks of life gathered to witness the crowning of their new queen. Elizabeth, dressed in a gown of purer white and gold, made her way to Westminster Abbey, the traditional site for the coronation of English monarchs. The coronation ceremony was steeped in tradition. Elizabeth was anointed, invested, and crowned, just as the monarchs before her had been. As she accepted the crown, a symbol of her authority, she became Queen Elizabeth I. However, becoming queen was not simply about the glamour and excitement of the coronation day. Elizabeth also inherited a kingdom fraught with issues. England was financially strained due to years of military engagements. The nation was also deeply divided on religious grounds between Catholics and Protestants. In addition, Elizabeth, being a woman, faced the challenge of ruling in a male-dominated society. Many doubted whether a woman could successfully govern the nation, but Elizabeth, with her remarkable intelligence and determined spirit, was ready to prove them wrong. While the crowning of Elizabeth was a day of celebration, it was also the start of a daunting journey. The crown brought with it both power and immense responsibility. The initial challenges she faced were numerous, but Elizabeth was prepared to tackle them head-on. The ascension of Elizabeth to the throne marked the beginning of a new era, one that would bring both trials and triumphs. In the early years of her reign, Elizabeth faced a daunting task: to consolidate her power and bring stability to a country rife with division. It was a complex challenge, but Elizabeth was not one to be daunted easily. She had learned from her tumultuous childhood the value of resilience and strategic thinking. One of Elizabeth's first tasks was to address the religious division in the country. She aimed to establish a middle ground between the extreme Catholicism of her sister Mary's reign and the radical Protestantism that had sprung up in opposition. In 1559, she passed the Act of Supremacy, re-establishing the Church of England and her own place as its supreme governor. This move was clever, as it allowed her to maintain control over the Church without alienating either Catholic or Protestant factions too much. Next, she had to tackle the financial troubles England was facing. Through careful management and frugality, Elizabeth began the slow process of restoring the English treasury. Her rule marked a shift from the extravagant spending of previous monarchs to a more balanced and conservative economic approach. Elizabeth also understood that her power came not just from her royal status, but also from the people. She was a master of public image, often presenting herself as a fair and just ruler, even as she made tough decisions. The Virgin Queen, as she styled herself, was a symbol of purity and devotion to her country. This image won her the love and respect of many of her subjects, further solidifying her position. Lastly, Elizabeth carefully managed the nobility and her advisers. She surrounded herself with capable and loyal men, like her chief adviser, William Cecil. She also played different factions against each other to ensure that no single group could pose a significant threat to her power. These early actions demonstrated Elizabeth's deft political skill and ability to command respect. Despite the odds against her, she managed to solidify her power, establish a stable government, and set England on a path of growth and prosperity. This period laid the foundation for what would come to be known as the Elizabethan era, a golden age in English history. Chapter 3: The Virgin Queen. One question that consistently surrounded Elizabeth throughout her reign was that of marriage. The marriage of a queen was not just a personal matter, but a political one. It could determine alliances, succession, and the future of the kingdom. Many expected Elizabeth to marry and produce an heir, thereby securing the Tudor dynasty. From the start, there was no shortage of suitors vying for Elizabeth's hand. These included foreign princes and powerful noblemen, each promising alliances and power. However, Elizabeth deftly avoided the marriage question. She neither accepted a proposal nor openly refused to marry. Instead, Elizabeth cleverly used the marriage question to her advantage. She kept her suitors guessing and used their interest in her as a way to forge diplomatic ties. She entertained proposals when it suited her political interests, but always stopped short of making a commitment. Many speculated why Elizabeth chose to remain single. Some believed she was scarred by her father's disastrous marriages and the execution of her mother. Others suggested that she was in love with Robert Dudley, her childhood friend and favourite at court. However, Elizabeth herself said that she was married to her country, committed to the welfare of her people. Elizabeth's decision to remain unmarried gave rise to her title as the Virgin Queen. It was a unique position, especially for a woman in a male-dominated society. However, it also granted her an unusual degree of independence and control. She did not have to share her power with a king or be influenced by a husband. The marriage question was a constant undercurrent throughout Elizabeth's reign. However, her strategic handling of it demonstrated her skill as a politician and leader. Elizabeth's choice to remain the Virgin Queen was not without controversy, but it was one of the many ways she challenged the norms of her time and asserted her authority as queen. Elizabeth's choice to remain unmarried wasn't simply a personal decision. It was a powerful statement that shaped her image and her reign. She presented herself as the Virgin Queen, a symbol of purity, virtue, and devotion to her country. Elizabeth and her advisers were adept at using symbolism and imagery to shape public opinion. They portrayed her as a maiden queen, untouched by the influence of any man, and dedicated wholly to the welfare of England. Her court artists, including the famous Nicholas Hilliard, painted her in radiant light, often dressed in white and adorned with pearls, symbols of virginity and purity. Her virginity was more than just a statement of her physical state. It was a political tool. As a Virgin Queen, Elizabeth was able to maintain her autonomy and rule without the influence or interference of a husband. It also allowed her to be seen as a mother figure to her subjects, fostering a sense of unity and national pride. Elizabeth's image as the Virgin Queen wasn't just about her marital status. It was about portraying an image of stability, strength, and constancy in a time of political and religious turmoil. By presenting herself as eternally youthful, untouched by time, and free from the domestic issues that marriage could bring, she projected an image of enduring authority and control. Furthermore, the Virgin Queen became a powerful symbol in the cultural and artistic life of the Elizabethan era. She became an inspiration for poets, playwrights, and artists who celebrated her as a symbol of England's strength and prosperity. Her virginity was extolled as a virtue, adding to her mystique and the mythology of her reign. In a time when a woman's value was often tied to her marital status and ability to produce heirs, Elizabeth's successful rule as the Virgin Queen challenged societal norms. Her choice to remain unmarried and her careful cultivation of her image as a symbol of purity played a crucial role in her ability to maintain power and control during her reign. As the Virgin Queen, Elizabeth I wielded an enormous influence over the cultural life of England. Her image as a chaste and dedicated ruler became a focal point of the arts, inspiring artists, poets, and playwrights alike. This led to a cultural flowering that has since been known as the Elizabethan era. One of the most visible ways Elizabeth's image influenced culture was through visual art. Portraits of Elizabeth were more than mere representations. They were filled with symbolism designed to communicate her power, wisdom, and, most importantly, her virginity. These images often depicted her dressed in extravagant gowns adorned with pearls, a symbol of purity, and surrounded by motifs that emphasized her regality and divine right to rule. Literature, too, was heavily influenced by Elizabeth's image. The Virgin Queen became a muse for many poets and playwrights of the era, including Edmund Spenser and William Shakespeare. In Spenser's epic poem The Faerie Queen, Elizabeth is allegorically represented as Gloriana, a virgin queen who is the embodiment of glory and goodness. In the realm of theatre, plays of the Elizabethan era often carried themes of virginity, virtue, and dedication to duty, mirroring the image of the Queen. These themes can be seen in the works of Shakespeare, Christopher Marlowe, and others. Music was another aspect of culture where the Virgin Queen left her mark. Psalms and ballads were written in her honour, celebrating her virtue and wisdom. Courtly dances and masques often played out themes related to her reign and the ideal of the virtuous queen. Elizabeth's influence extended beyond the arts, impacting the overall culture of England. Her choice to remain unmarried challenged societal norms, offering a new model of female authority. Her reign also marked a time of relative peace and prosperity, contributing to a sense of national pride and identity. Thus, the image of the Virgin Queen became a powerful cultural symbol, shaping the arts and society of the Elizabethan era. Through her rule and her carefully crafted persona, Elizabeth I left a lasting imprint on English culture that continues to be celebrated today. Chapter 4. Political Mastery. Elizabeth's approach to governance was a unique blend of firmness and flexibility, earning her the moniker of ruling with a golden hand. She exhibited a strong hand when needed, yet showed understanding and compromise where possible. This style was instrumental in navigating the complex political landscape of her time. Elizabeth was not a passive monarch. She was actively involved in the matters of her kingdom. She attended council meetings regularly, pored over state papers, and made key decisions. Her education and intelligence shone through in her handling of state affairs, demonstrating a keen understanding of both domestic and international politics. At the same time, Elizabeth was known for her diplomatic approach. She was a skilled negotiator, often using her charm and wit to navigate politically challenging situations. She knew when to be assertive and when to employ tact and diplomacy. While Elizabeth held the ultimate power, she was also aware of the importance of her advisers and the nobility. She was selective about the people she surrounded herself with, favouring men of ability and loyalty. William Cecil, later Lord Burghley, was one such trusted adviser who offered his wise counsel throughout her reign. Elizabeth also understood the importance of her relationship with the people. She often embarked on royal progresses around the country, allowing her subjects to see and interact with their queen. These visits helped maintain her popularity and offered her a first-hand understanding of the state of her kingdom. Yet, despite her willingness to listen and compromise, Elizabeth was not afraid to be firm when required. She knew how to maintain her authority and made clear that she was the ultimate power. Whether dealing with religious dissent, potential uprisings, or foreign threats, Elizabeth demonstrated a steadfast resolve and decisive action. Elizabeth's golden hand approach to governance enabled her to maintain control and stability in a period marked by religious turmoil, political intrigue, and external threats. Her ability to balance firmness with understanding, to be both a ruler and a servant to her people, made her one of the most successful and revered monarchs in English history. One of the most critical challenges Elizabeth faced upon ascending to the throne was resolving the religious discord in England. Her predecessors, Henry VIII and Mary I, had swung the country between Protestantism and Catholicism, causing turmoil and unrest. Elizabeth's goal was to establish a middle ground that would bring unity and peace. Elizabeth's solution was the Elizabethan Religious Settlement, a series of laws passed in 1559 that established the Church of England's doctrine and practices. The settlement included the Act of Supremacy, which declared Elizabeth as the supreme governor of the Church, and the Act of Uniformity, which set out the form of worship to be followed in churches across England. This settlement was designed to appease both Protestants and Catholics. It retained certain Catholic traditions in church services, such as the use of vestments, while confirming the Protestant doctrine. The intent was to create a church that was Protestant in theology, but Catholic in appearance, allowing for a broad range of beliefs. Elizabeth's approach was one of compromise and moderation. She sought to avoid religious extremism, aiming instead for a national church that was inclusive rather than divisive. Her famous phrase, "I would not open windows into men's souls," indicated her reluctance to persecute individuals for their private beliefs as long as they conformed outwardly to the established church. The Elizabethan religious settlement faced opposition from both the Catholic and Protestant extremes. However, it largely succeeded in establishing a peaceful religious climate in England. Elizabeth's approach was pragmatic and politically astute, prioritizing peace and unity over dogmatic religious purity. Through the religious settlement, Elizabeth managed to navigate the religious schisms of her time and establish a distinctive English Protestantism. Her handling of this sensitive issue is a testament to her political skill and her commitment to the welfare of her kingdom. It set the course for the Church of England's development and significantly shaped English religious history. One of the most defining events of Elizabeth's reign was her conflict with Spain, climaxing in the historic naval battle known as the defeat of the Spanish Armada. This conflict not only tested Elizabeth's leadership, but also had significant implications for England's position on the world stage. The relationship between England and Spain had been strained for years due to religious and political differences. Spain, a Catholic nation, was threatened by Protestant England under Elizabeth's rule. Adding to this was the issue of piracy, with English seamen, including Sir Francis Drake, regularly attacking Spanish ships and colonies. In 1588, King Philip II of Spain assembled a huge fleet of ships, known as the Spanish Armada, with the aim of invading England. The Spanish Armada was seen as invincible, with about 130 ships and 30,000 men. Facing this formidable force, Elizabeth showed remarkable leadership. Elizabeth was not a passive observer during this crisis. She met with her military advisors, reviewed plans, and made critical decisions. Most notably, she delivered a speech to her troops at Tilbury, displaying her resolve and rallying her forces. Her words, "I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king," became legendary. The battle itself took place in the English Channel and the North Sea. Despite being outnumbered, the English navy, using smaller, faster ships and innovative tactics, caused significant damage to the Spanish fleet. Furthermore, the weather, known as the Protestant wind, played a crucial role, scattering the Spanish Armada and aiding the English victory. The defeat of the Spanish Armada was a turning point for Elizabeth's reign. It bolstered her leadership, solidified England's Protestant identity, and marked the beginning of England's rise as a global naval power. The victory was celebrated as a sign of God's favour, reinforcing Elizabeth's image as a divinely chosen leader. The conflict with Spain and the subsequent victory over the Spanish Armada showcased Elizabeth's effective leadership and the growing strength of England. It was a testament to Elizabeth's political mastery, her ability to rally her nation in the face of threat, and her resolve to protect and uphold her kingdom's sovereignty and religious identity. Chapter 5. Elizabethan Golden Age. Elizabeth's reign is often referred to as the Elizabethan Golden Age, a period marked by relative peace, prosperity, and remarkable cultural achievements. Under her rule, England flourished in various fields such as literature, arts, exploration, and commerce. A significant aspect of the Elizabethan Golden Age was the explosion of English literature. This period saw the rise of legendary playwrights like William Shakespeare and Christopher Marlowe, whose works are celebrated for their depth of emotion, richness of language, and complexity of characters. Their plays, exploring themes of love, power, identity, and humanity, are still performed and studied today. In the visual arts, artists like Nicholas Hilliard created iconic portraits of Elizabeth, reflecting the splendour and grandeur of her reign. These works of art, filled with symbolism and elegance, contributed to the construction of Elizabeth's image and legacy. The Elizabethan Golden Age was also a time of exploration and expansion. Adventurers such as Sir Francis Drake and Sir Walter Raleigh undertook daring voyages, expanding English influence overseas and paving the way for the future British Empire. The success of these voyages boosted national pride and contributed to England's growing economic prosperity. In terms of society and economy, England saw significant growth during this period. Elizabeth's policies promoted commerce, leading to increased trade with other countries. Improvements in agriculture and the growth of industries like wool and cloth production contributed to a flourishing economy. The living standards of the people improved, and the middle class began to expand. Elizabethan England was characterized by a vibrant culture, a sense of national identity, and optimism for the future. The achievements in literature, arts, exploration, and trade during this period reflect a society that was dynamic, confident, and creative. Despite challenges and unrest, the Elizabethan Golden Age stands as a testament to Elizabeth's effective rule and the enduring spirit of the English people. During Elizabeth's reign, English exploration of the New World took off, laying the groundwork for future English, and eventually British, colonization of the Americas. Elizabeth played a crucial role in this historical venture, endorsing and supporting several notable explorations. In the 16th century, the lure of the New World was strong. The promise of riches, along with the chance to spread Protestantism, drove explorers to embark on risky voyages across the Atlantic. Elizabeth, recognizing the potential benefits for England, became a patron of these explorations. Sir Francis Drake was one of the explorers backed by Elizabeth. Notably, he became the first Englishman to circumnavigate the globe between 1577 and 1580. His voyages brought back treasures, including precious metals and spices, increasing England's wealth. His interactions with indigenous peoples also established early English contacts outside Europe. Perhaps the most well-known Elizabethan exploration of the New World was undertaken by Sir Walter Raleigh. Granted a royal patent by Elizabeth in 1584, Raleigh led expeditions to the coast of present-day North Carolina and named the region Virginia in honor of Elizabeth, the Virgin Queen. Although his attempts to establish a permanent English colony, the lost colony of Roanoke, ended in failure, they represented the beginnings of English settlement in North America. Through her patronage of these voyages, Elizabeth helped to kickstart England's efforts to explore and colonize the New World. This was not only important for England's international status and economic growth, but it also allowed Protestant England to challenge the Catholic dominance in the New World, particularly the Spanish and Portuguese empires. Elizabeth's support of New World exploration and colonization played a pivotal role in the eventual establishment of English-speaking nations in North America, notably the future United States. It marks yet another aspect of the Elizabethan Golden Age, showcasing Elizabeth's forward-thinking approach and the expanding global reach of England. Elizabeth's reign is known for its remarkable contributions to the arts and literature. The Elizabethan era sparked a cultural renaissance, with Elizabeth herself being a patron and supporter of arts and literature. This period's creative output continues to be celebrated and studied, leaving an enduring legacy that still resonates today. Perhaps the most famous figure of this era is William Shakespeare. Shakespeare's work, including timeless plays like Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, Macbeth, and A Midsummer Night's Dream, transformed English drama and language. His plays, filled with complex characters, engaging plots, and profound insights into human nature, continue to be performed and adored by audiences worldwide. Another significant figure is Christopher Marlowe, whose dramatic works, such as Dr. Faustus, were innovative and influential. His plays were known for their daring themes and powerful poetic language. Though Marlowe's life was short, his impact on English drama is profound. The Elizabethan era was also rich in poetry. Figures like Edmund Spenser, known for his epic poem, The Faerie Queene, and Sir Walter Raleigh, an explorer and poet, made significant contributions to English literature. Their work is celebrated for its creative beauty and imaginative scope. In the visual arts, the era was marked by the creation of iconic portraits of Elizabeth. Artists like Nicholas Hilliard painted the Queen in ways that emphasized her authority and majesty. These portraits contributed to the construction of Elizabeth's public image and the symbolism associated with her reign. Music, too, flourished during this period. Composers such as William Byrd and Thomas Tallis created works that ranged from sacred music to madrigals, reflecting the era's diversity and creativity. The Elizabethan era was a time of extraordinary creativity and cultural vitality. Its impact is seen not just in the arts and literature, but also in the English language itself, with many words and phrases coined during this period still in use today. The legacy of the Elizabethan Golden Age continues to shape our cultural landscape, embodying the ingenuity, spirit, and dynamism of Elizabeth's reign. Chapter 6. The Final Years and Lasting Legacy. As Elizabeth aged, the invincible image of the youthful queen began to give way to the realities of time. Her final years as queen were marked by challenges both at home and abroad, yet she continued to rule with the determination and dignity that characterized her reign. Towards the end of her rule, Elizabeth faced numerous trials. The economic prosperity of the earlier years of her reign began to decline, partly due to the cost of wars with Spain and Ireland. At home, court intrigues increased as potential successors began to vie for power. Elizabeth herself never married or had children, thus the question of succession became a prominent concern. Elizabeth also had to deal with a changing political landscape. The world was moving towards a system of nation-states, and England had to adapt. Elizabeth, however, managed these changes with her usual political acumen. Despite these challenges, Elizabeth remained a beloved figure to her subjects. She continued to carry out her royal duties, meeting with her council, making decisions, and even taking part in public ceremonies. Her courage and resilience were apparent, and her subjects admired her for this. In her last years, Elizabeth often reflected on her long reign. She was known to have said, "All my possessions for a moment of time," perhaps suggesting her awareness of her approaching end and her desire to continue serving her country. Elizabeth's death in 1603 marked the end of an era. She had reigned for 44 years, a period of considerable stability, growth, and cultural flourishing for England. Despite the difficulties of her later years, she remained until the end a symbol of strength and resilience, earning her the enduring affection and respect of her subjects. The legacy she left behind is an indelible part of English history. The year 1603 marked a significant turning point in English history, the death of Queen Elizabeth I and the end of the Tudor dynasty. Despite her age and failing health, the Queen's death was a monumental event that left a profound impact on her kingdom and signalled a shift in England's political landscape. As the ageing Queen's health began to decline, the looming question of succession cast a shadow over the court. Elizabeth, the Virgin Queen, had never married nor had children. Thus, her passing signified the end of the Tudor lineage, a royal line that had ruled England for over a century. Elizabeth's final days were marked by illness and a deep melancholy. She spent her time in seclusion, refusing to eat or sleep. Rumours and speculations swirled around her condition, creating an atmosphere of suspense and unease in the court. Despite the best efforts of her attendants, Elizabeth passed away on March 24, 1603. News of the Queen's death spread quickly, leading to public expressions of grief. The streets of London were filled with mourning subjects, paying their respects to a queen who had ruled them for more than 4 decades. Elizabeth's death was seen not only as the loss of a monarch, but also as the end of an era. Elizabeth's body was laid to rest in Westminster Abbey, alongside her half-sister, Mary I. Her tomb, adorned with a beautiful effigy, bore the inscription, "She who has been such a one to our kingdom, as in the latter times there was none like." Upon Elizabeth's death, the throne passed to James VI of Scotland, who became James I of England, thereby uniting the crowns of Scotland and England and initiating the Stuart dynasty. Elizabeth's death signified the end of the Tudor dynasty and an era that had seen England transform from a relatively insignificant island nation to a significant European power. Her rule is remembered for its significant cultural and political achievements, and her passing marked the conclusion of one of the most iconic periods in English history. Even centuries after her death, Elizabeth I's influence on England and the world remains undeniable. Her long and impactful reign left a legacy that continues to shape our understanding of English history and the evolution of modern political thought. One of the most significant aspects of Elizabeth's legacy is her contribution to establishing England as a powerful player on the world stage. Her support of maritime exploration and the resultant establishment of overseas colonies laid the groundwork for what would eventually become the British Empire. Elizabeth's reign is also synonymous with a cultural renaissance. The Elizabethan era saw an explosion of creativity in arts and literature, with figures like William Shakespeare and Christopher Marlowe revolutionizing English drama. The language, culture, and creative expressions of this period continue to captivate audiences today. Politically, Elizabeth's reign saw the consolidation of the Church of England. The Elizabethan religious settlement, which established a middle path between Roman Catholicism and radical Protestantism, still influences the religious landscape of England. The Virgin Queen's decision to never marry or bear children was an unconventional choice that challenged the norms of her time. This stance contributed to her image as a strong, independent ruler, creating a lasting symbol of female authority in a patriarchal world. On a broader level, Elizabeth's reign was a lesson in balance and pragmatism. Her political acumen, ability to compromise, and astute diplomacy, particularly in her handling of the Catholic-Protestant divide, left indelible lessons in governance. Finally, Elizabeth's influence is seen in the enduring popularity of her persona. She continues to be a subject of interest, with her life and reign depicted in various forms of media. From film and television to literature and art, Elizabeth I has become an iconic figure of English history. The story of Elizabeth I, her ascension to the throne, her reign, and her legacy, is a testament to her extraordinary leadership and the indomitable spirit that made her one of the most influential monarchs in history. Her enduring influence remains a significant part of England's historical narrative, extending far beyond her lifetime and deeply ingrained in the fabric of today's world.